Well, buenos dias, amigos. This is Cody, coming at you with another bonus episode from the 50. So today, we're at Evo in Portland, Oregon. This spot may be a little bit different to the Tahoe Sports Hub location you're used to for Gear Talk. But don't worry, those guys are still my local shop. They're my boys. But I'm here in Evo today specifically to give you, the audience from all over, more access to the gear I use. You see, they've built a special landing page with all the gear I use in the project for you to peruse. So I don't have to keep answering DMs about what sunglasses I wear. They're Smith Wildcats. So today, I'll be talking layering. That's right, the clothing system everyone in backcountry skiing and winter travel tells you about, but no one seems to tell you why. So today, we're gonna go a little bit into the science of layering, and specifically how I layer for ski touring. So why layering for backcountry skiing? Well, the first thing everyone generally says is temperature management. And while that's partially true, the real story is in moisture management. Why moisture management? Well, because moisture, aka liquid, by weight is about 4 times more efficient of a conductor of temperature than air. It's also 24 times faster conductor of temperature than air.
It's why I can stand outside in board shorts when it's 38 degrees out and not freeze instantaneously. But in this 45-degree water, I'm immediately freezing my ass off. Oh, that was cold. Oh God.
In winter, they say cold kills, when in fact, it's moisture plus cold that kills. This is simply because staying warm is quite easy. You just throw on more layers. While staying dry in an environment entirely made of frozen moisture is truly the issue you have to focus on in the backcountry. So overall, when I'm regulating my temperature in the backcountry, it means I'm usually trying to regulate moisture. So now you may be asking yourself, yeah, we'll just put on a rain jacket. That'll keep all the moisture out.
The fact is, when you're backcountry skiing, you're exercising. And when you're exercising, your body is producing heat. And if you don't let that heat escape, it might produce sweat. So if you're wearing too much insulation or something not breathable, like this PVC rain poncho, you might be sweating on the inside even when it's freezing on the outside. Then, when you get to the summit and stop, suddenly you're gonna get very, very cold.
That issue of staying dry from the inside, not protected from the outside, is one of the hardest things to do in backcountry skiing. So how we do it? Well, let's get into it. So first off, you start with the base. Over the years, we've seen base layers go from cotton long johns to revolutionary polyester to these days a proliferation of merino wool. There are pros and cons to each material. First off, cotton in skiing, well, you've heard the term, cotton kills. Why? Well, because cotton is a cellulose structure and can absorb 25% of its weight with water. That water becomes trapped, doesn't dry, and you freeze to death. Cotton should never be used as a base layer. One of the first revolutions in base layers came when synthetics, or polyester, was invented. Why was polyester a revolution? Well, because polyester is made from oil, and you all know how oil and water don't mix, right? Polyester is a super efficient reflector and evaporator of moisture, and when wet, doesn't stay wet for long. The downside is it smells like hell really quick. One of the next revolutions in base layers came by turning back the clock and looking at a natural fiber that was used for centuries as an insulation. That came from wool, but from a specific kind of wool, merino wool. Not that scratchy, itchy sheep's wool from the sweaters your grandpa used to wear. Merino wool is a softer, less rough version of that wool. Wool is an amazing natural material that keeps warm even while wet.
In fact, wool can retain up to 85% of its insulating values while wet. It's because it does an incredible job of retaining moisture away from its exterior structure fibers. That way, the moisture isn't touching your skin. But eventually, it gets so wet that it won't dry out, and those exterior structures do get wet, leaving your skin clammy and eventually cold. It's something I've noticed over many years in the mountains.
That is, until I found wool synthetic blends like these Labent base layers, which are merino wool and bamboo rayon synthetic. They combine the best of wool, yet with more ability to reflect and evaporate moisture. So even when I get sweaty, which is bound to happen when hiking, I can dry out quickly, stay warm, and also not stink as bad as those pure synthetics. Plus, this Labent synthetic is made from bamboo, not oil, so that's nice. Okay, so now that we've gone through the base layers, let's get to the next layers. So when I'm layering through a day of backcountry, I'm always trying to stay cool on the up and warm on the down. Because if I stay cool, I don't sweat and I stay dry, which means I stay warm. This is the key to layering. The goal is balancing temperatures through layers to stay dry, so you stay warm. Typically, on the way up, I only wear 2 base layers, even on the coldest day. My base layer, and then an extremely breathable windbreaker to keep the mountain winds off my skin. My personal favorite is this Salomon S-Lab 360 jacket with Gore-Tex Shake Dry. It's the most breathable waterproof fabric Gore-Tex makes. So, although it looks like a trash bag, it's the single most functional layer I've found for touring when it's windy, snowing, or wet. It keeps cool, yet dry, the best of both worlds for hiking. Your third layer is insulation. For me, I always bring a puffy in my backpack. No matter what the day, what the temperature, it's always in my bag. The only variable is whether or not I bring a lightweight puffy like this for those warmer days, or a heavy puffy like this for the cold days. For those numbers of 600 down and 800 down, just remember, the higher the down number, the more efficient that down is at insulating. But 300 grams of 550 down is warmer than 120 grams of 800 fill down. The higher the fill down, the more expensive it will be, but also the lighter and more compressible it will be. Now to the last layer, that's your outer layer. This needs to be the most efficient repeller of exterior moisture and your first line of defense from the elements. This is truly the layer that is built to keep exterior moisture out through all conditions. 3-layer contracted shell jackets and pants with a breathable, waterproof liner, like Gore-Tex, sandwiched in the middle, is the staple layer of backcountry skiing. It is your first and last line of defense from the elements outside, and it's why shells can be so pricey. Just consider this layer your survival equipment, and it'll make more sense when you're shelling out those dollar bills. In regards to lower layers, I always wear 1 base layer and my shell bibs, with my arcade belt to keep it all together. I like the belt on bibs simply because it helps the bibs from annoyingly rotating while hiking. Also, these things can be used in a pinch to create a splint,
Or you could fix a broken backpack strap.
Okay, a few other little nuggets to talk about. Let's talk about hands. Hands get real cold real quick in the mountains. The reason? Your body's natural instinct is to always protect your core, your heart, and your organs. So in order to protect itself from the cold blood from your extremities flowing to your core body, your body has a unique process of vasoconstriction that cuts off blood supply to your extremities and only keeps it from circulating in your core.
I let my hands sweat because it was super warm earlier, and then they got frozen, and now they're dying.
It's an amazing feat of evolution, but it also makes your hands cold as hell. The moment your body senses your hands are cold, it starts its vasoconstriction magic. So in order to prevent cold hands, I take the same principle of layering with my clothes to my hands. I always start my tour off in merino wool liners, like these Hestra Merino Touch Points. This keeps my hands warm from wind and surface cold, while allowing them to breathe to stay unsweaty. When the going gets a little colder, I stuff these liners into my favorite glove, the Hestra Fault Guide glove. These wool-lined gloves do an amazing job of regulating temperature and moisture. Now when the going gets even colder, where my hands are in the snow while climbing, I put that whole system of layers into these Hestra pullover mitts, which essentially turns the liner and glove into a waterproof mitten. Essentially, I'm regulating hand temperature and moisture by layering a liner, a glove, and an overmitt. So instead of bringing 3 pair of gloves, I get 3 pair of gloves in 1 layer-like system. By the way, this is something I more recently figured out as the 50 has rolled along. That's why my hands were so cold in that first shot. Anyways, one last bonus item not often thought about while touring, your feet. hard to do much about your feet, but there is one thing I've learned that's not often talked about. If you're touring, look into liners that have breathability for the same reason of moisture management. For instance, while closed-cell foam may feel warm at first, like Intuition race liners, its a lack of breathability will allow for moisture in your feet to build up and make your feet soaking wet and super cold. Most modern touring liners are built with breathable materials, but definitely ask your local shop for more details when purchasing liners for your ski touring boots. So okay, that's some of the reasoning and why behind why we layer in the backcountry. Remember, it's more about moisture management than keeping the cold out.